How can we turn enemies into friends? How can we bring children back together who beforehand were bullying each other, fighting each other, and hating each other? How can we achieve that those who hated each other initially will become friends again? And this is, of course, a question that psychologists were trying to answer for decades. And it all began with a study by Mustafa Sherif in 1961, in which they first did some fun activities like hiking, swimming, and some building projects to promote group coherence. So both groups developed their own norms and rituals. They gave themselves names. The one group was called the Rattles and the other group was called the Eagles. And up to this point, everything was fine. But the next step of the scientists was to create some hostility between the groups by initiating some competition, something we do all the time with our children. We always let them compete with each other. And this is something the scientists also did. They made them play baseball against each other, football, and also some tug of war. And the winners were always rewarded. They got medals, they got trophies, and they even got some small knives. And it didn't take very long until the rivalry turned into hostility. After a game of baseball, the Eagles burned the flag of the Rattles. The day after, the Rattles went over to the rooms of the Eagles and made a mess and even stole some things. And later on it escalated into fist fights until the scientists said, okay, this is enough, we have to separate the groups. So there were two groups who were hating each other to the blood, and now the scientists had to find a way to turn the enemies into friends. And the idea was to create some activities in which all group members had to join in. But it turned out that just eating together or watching a movie together was by far not enough. The activities had to be in a way that all the group members also had to work together to a common goal. So, for example, they created a situation in which they said, okay, there's a problem with the water tank and therefore the water supply for the camp does no longer work. We all have to work together because we need water for the camp, right? In another situation, they said the camp truck is stuck and they said we need all children to pull the ropes, otherwise we won't get the truck out of the mud. Beforehand, the two groups were fighting each other by pulling the rope against each other, but this time they were pulling the rope together for a common goal to get the truck out of the mud. And it didn't take very long that afterwards, those children who initially had hated each other, they had prejudices against the other group, they now even said that they had one closest friend in the other group. So enemies had become friends. And I think we can learn a lot out of this study. And of course, this was just a pilot study, and afterwards these results could be replicated in many, many other studies. For example, when it comes to education, we shouldn't create so many competition situations because those promote hostility, bullying, and maybe even fist fights between children. We should more often have situations, and we as, for example, parents, teachers, or educators, we have the power to decide how we create learning situations. And we can, for example, say, okay, now we have a situation in which all have to work together for a project. Instead of saying, okay, now we make a quiz and this is the one group and this is the other group, we could say, well, we have a quiz, and if all together reach the following number of points, then you get the following reward. So we more often should create situations in which children or people in general have to work together for a common goal. Then we probably would have less hostility between children, but maybe also in our whole society. That's at least what we can learn from this study. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you want, we will see you next time.